This is a Clouds weather alert.
Meteorologist Casey Cloud live with you here in the Weather Center. On this Sunday, we have a wildfire situation. Unfortunately, all that wind you might have been seeing out and about today has really started to cause big problems there into Charlton County, Georgia. You're looking at the smoke plume that's blowing across Nassau County there and all the way across into the Atlantic, even into parts of Duval County, getting into some of that smoke here. But the actual fire situation where there's a mandatory evacuation, that's in Charlton County in Georgia here. So let me go ahead and stop the loop. I know it's in the vicinity of US 301 and around the Folkestone/Homeland area there. So we really need folks to take this very seriously and evacuate here if they're under the order. And let me go ahead and put that back up if you weren't watching before I actually came on here. I had it up running on the screen for a few minutes. But let me go ahead and see that mandatory evacuation order just from about 40 minutes ago now, as I took the screenshot a few moments ago. But evacuation notice, I shared it on Facebook here right around 5 o'clock. And due to an active fire in the area, there's an evacuation order. Residents on the following roads are ordered to evacuate immediately there into Charlton County in Georgia, talking about Harold White Road, Humphreys Road, Bill Knight Road, and Willow Creek Road. Please leave the area safely and follow directions from on-scene emergency personnel. Take essential items only and check on neighbors if you're able to do so safely. Avoid the area and use alternative routes to allow emergency responders space to operate. An update to be provided as more information becomes available. So a very serious situation right now in Charlton County in Georgia. All these winds, these low humidity values here, unfortunately causing big problems now in the vicinity of the Folkestone/Homeland area there in Charlton County. Again, due to an active fire in the area, residents on the following roads are ordered to evacuate immediately: Harold White Road, Humphreys Road, Bill Knight Road, and Willow Creek Road. Again, you gotta get out here. This is an emergency situation there in Charlton County in Georgia. You gotta evacuate. This is an evacuation notice from Charlton County Emergency Management. This is where I took this from here that I'm showing to you on the screen here. We're on alert mode now too because the fire danger is just going to get worse as we get toward Monday. And we have, this whole weather pattern. We had the low around here last night giving us a little rain. We only got 2/100ths of an inch here east of Stark, but that's actually turned into a blizzard up north, a historic blizzard. The models, have really come into agreement here on a very serious situation up there with widespread power outages possible at the coast up there. So there's a lot going on here in the world weather. So we're in alert mode here. Again, this is an active wildfire situation, and that's our local focus here right now. The reason we're on the air, there's an active wildfire here in towards southeastern Georgia that's prompting evacuations. And this right here, if I'll put the mouse on the screen and you can see it now, that's the smoke plume, and that's blowing all the way down here through Nassau County. The plume of smoke, not the fire itself, but all the way out to the Atlantic. They're even in the northeastern Duval County. This is a very serious situation here right now. We need you guys to evacuate. You need to follow the orders that are here in play. This is a very serious scenario. I know that smoke is blowing from the north and west there to the south and east, if you get it what I'm saying here, because we have those winds there, that wind direction here. We have that wind out of the north and west, so that's blowing the smoke off toward the south and east here, and the fire too in the areas, we can't see that directly on radar, but right there in the warded area, the fire in general, we're moving southeast and pretty fast because of these stronger than normal winds. I know we had our strongest wind gust here east of Stark since May. Measured a anemometer today. That was late this morning. It's not very high up, so it's not a huge number, only 27 miles an hour, but the point is it's only like 7 feet up. But the reasoning behind mentioning that is just relative. We've had some tropical storm force gusto around today, and that's about what we've had here. Our gauge again here in Stark, east of, Stark and or Bradford County. Not going to measure that directly, but we just got to, make sure folks are evacuating here immediately because it's a very fast-moving fire situation, and things are going to get, maybe worse tomorrow as we dry out from into the lingering moisture on the ground with the low humidity values. Even more serious fire threat, in our southern periphery down in toward, central and southern Florida tomorrow. But we're even going to have a freeze here tonight hit locally from about Baker County northward. So, yeah, we got a lot going on here, folks. we just had temperature. I mean, we're at 60 here east of Stark right now in north central Florida. I mean, yesterday we got up there all the way, as I look at my information, to 86 degrees. So, yeah, we have a big shift in the weather pattern here, and unfortunately some very strong winds are associated with it here, and we have some very significant danger here right now in toward Charlton County in Georgia. We have an evacuation in play. Again, if you're just tuning in, you're just kind of wondering, why am I on the air here? Well, that's because we have a very serious scenario here. An evacuation has been ordered. Let me go ahead and throw that back up here on the screen right now. I'm going to throw that back up. This is an evacuation notice from Charlton County Emergency Management. Due to an active fire in the area, residents on the following roads are ordered to evacuate immediately. In the word Georgia there, southeast Georgia we're talking about. And we're talking about Harold White Road, Humphreys Road, Bill Knight Road, Willow Creek Road. Please leave the area safely and follow directions from on-scene emergency personnel. Take essential items only and check on neighbors if you're able to do so safely. Avoid the area and use alternative routes to allow emergency responder space to operate. An update to be provided as more information becomes available. So again, a very serious scenario there. That information coming out from Charlton County Emergency Management here. So again, this is very serious stuff that we're talking about right now toward southeastern Georgia. An evacuation has been ordered because of an out-of-control wildfire here. We've been concerned about this for a long time. Months really, this drought, unfortunately, is starting to, that danger with the wildfire threat really starting to come into play here. I mean, this is your Georgia drought monitor as of Thursday. You can see they're right on the edge of severe to extreme, but it didn't matter. Still big problems. Something gets going somehow. We don't know how at this point, but, then you have big problems. So, I know. Let's go ahead and see some of the evacuation tips now. Just remain calm here, but the roads I mentioned, you need to take action immediately. Leave as soon as, in that case now, if you're in those roads I talked about, is recommended or, really mandated by local officials to avoid being caught in the fire there. So this could delay, or excuse me, this could cost your life if there is a delay here. So take the initiative to stay informed and aware, and really just need to make sure you have your important documents. Try to get them as quick as you can. Some cases you might not have very much time. Sometimes it's just going to be local officials kind of knocking on your door saying you have to get out versus, even having, much time at all. Maybe, a matter of seconds in some cases. So for everybody, you need to really be prepared here in this type of situation as we're looking and as we're tracking things. Again, very serious. Let's show you that Florida map here, a drought. It's just, a picture that's not a good one at all. The extreme drought for almost the entire region here that we cover in North Florida. So not a good scenario here. Not a good scenario at all as we're looking and as we're tracking things. Again, this is a very serious stuff, in fact, that we got to take very seriously here. This is stuff you don't want to mess around with, unfortunately, in Charlton County in Georgia. Again, mandatory evacuation. Ordered to evacuate immediately. Harold White Road, Humphreys Road, Bill Knight Road, Willow Creek Road there in towards southeast Georgia. Again, part of our 62 counties here, and we're very concerned. And sometimes, these aren't as evident on radar. We don't get as much, maybe notification about these, but because this has really been filling up here, and it's really caught so many folks' attention with all that smoke, becoming a bigger deal, and we hope it's not one of the bigger wildfire situations we have, but it is a very serious one in the moment at least, and, we hope we don't have any really big ones is what I'm trying to say, and we really need to take this very seriously here. Again, we're always giving you guys the latest best we can for our area, and there's where Charlton is. You see Ware and Nassau and Duval, Camden, Baker. I know from what I was reading there, maybe getting some help there from other counties, Charlton and other officials there, to try to fight this. Again, okay, we just got a new update here. We just got a new update 3 minutes ago from Charlton County Emergency Management here. So let me get this on the screen. I made that 4 minutes ago. I'm going to try to pull this up as quick as I can here. We'll try to share the screen with you guys. So bear with me here as I try to do that here live on the air. This is very important, to try to give you guys the latest update. Most of this it's stuff we've been talking about, but they actually have a potential cause for the fire here. So let me go ahead and say this to you. We're going to share the screen right now since this is a very fluid scenario here. I'll just go ahead and share it off of Facebook, looking at the Charlton County Emergency Management post here. And in fact, let me see if I can make that just a tad bigger for everybody, because I know that's a little bit small. I know that's why I took it off a screen, took a screenshot earlier. But since we're live like this, let me just see if I can make this just a tad bigger, and we'll try that again. I think that would help everybody there at home to be able to read this a little bit better as I'm going over the information. This is very fluid, obviously, as you can tell here. Let me go ahead and share this. So here you go. Active fire update. Highway 301/Humphreys Road area. This is as of just a few minutes ago. An active fire believed to have been started by a down power line. All this wind maybe knocking that down there would seem, impacting the area of Highway 301 and Humphreys Road. Please avoid this area completely. Evacuations have been ordered for Harold White Road, Humphreys Road, Bill Knight Road, Willow Creek Road. This is not changing then. And fires, it's not getting better yet. Unfortunately, sometimes we, maybe have good news and we can, kind of let our guard down. That's not what we're dealing with right now. It's still in play. The active mandatory evacuation there. Harold White Road, Humphreys Road, Bill Knight Road, Willow Creek Road there, into our Charlton County. You haven't, unfortunately, because of the serious situation here, ordered to evacuate immediately. Fire suppression and structural protection efforts are underway with support from Charlton County Fire Rescue, Charlton County EMS there, Georgia Forestry, as well as Camden County, Ware County, and Nassau County in Florida. Charlton County 911 Center is actively managing emergency calls. Please call 911 only if you have a true emergency or immediate life-threatening situation, and during active incidents there, individual responses to social media questions may be limited. Charlton County Emergency Management is actively supporting response, operation, and coordination efforts there. So the number one priority remains the safety of responders and community members. Update to be shared as information becomes available. So again, a mandatory evacuation continues there in southeastern Georgia for these roads here on the screen. We're talking about Harold White Road, Humphreys Road, Bill Knight Road, Willow Creek Road. An active fire, wildfire, believed to have been started by a down power line is impacting the area of Highway 301 and Humphreys Road. Again, please avoid this area completely. Evacuations have been ordered for Harold White Road, Humphreys Road, Bill Knight Road, Willow Creek Road. Fire suppression and structural protection efforts are underway with support from Charlton County Fire Rescue, Charlton County EMS, Georgia Forestry, Camden County, Ware County, and Nassau County. So a bunch of Georgia counties involved with this, but also Nassau County in Florida here. And this is something where the 911 call center is actively managing emergency calls. Please call 911 only if you have a true emergency or immediate life-threatening situation. So again, mandatory evacuations there. Charlton County, Harold White Road, Humphreys Road, Bill Knight Road, and Willow Creek Road. So you gotta follow these orders. This is to protect you, maybe your life here, because of fire, these winds, and the low humidity values here, these low dew points, it's so dry. It's something that really seems to be very much out of control. A down power line sparking this. I know there's always debate out west in California when you have winds up, and low humidity and the like, whether to just turn the power off completely. That's a debate that's been talked about for a while. That's not something we do around here in general, but North Florida, South Georgia, but it's something that they have to do sometimes out there, because there's been some really serious fires, and litigation involved in that in the past out in California. But again, as we go ahead and look back here at the map right now, we'll go ahead and say here, hey, look at this. I want to try to pull up some traffic cameras. I have one that I was looking at a little while ago. We're going to try to pull that in here in just a second. Again, we're live. This is a very fluid scenario. Again, we're trying to give you guys the very latest here. Let's see what we can find here with that view. Again, a very fluid situation. Let's see what we can find on this camera. Looks like it's been turned since I looked at it earlier, but it definitely looks smoky and windy, if nothing else. So we're going to see this Georgia 511 perspective now. You can see this GDOT camera. There's State Road 23 / US 301 South at US 1/US 23, mile marker 6.3. You see all that haze that looks like smoke to me, and you see the camera moving because of the winds and how dry things look too. Look how just dry everything looks. That's how it is all around here because of all the dryness and all the cold we've had. This is not a good combination here. And we have as volatile fire conditions that you ever see really around here. We've had it today. We're going to have them tomorrow here as well. Maybe even, getting into Tuesday and the like. It's a possibility. So again, I just continuing to give you guys the latest here. Again, very volatile in terms of this situation. Let me go ahead and move away from this camera view for a moment. But again, trying to give you guys the latest here on what's happening. Let's see if we have any other camera views possibly. I don't think we do out of Folkestone. I'm just going to go ahead and keep watching, keep tracking the situation. A very dangerous one, obviously. We have the mandatory evacuation here in play. This has been so dry here, unfortunately. Let me see what else I can find here. Let me show you the wind map here. So you have the winds coming from the northwest there. The winds out of the northwest was pulling smoke southeast here. As we're looking and as we're tracking things, as we're monitoring the scenario here. It's not a good one, obviously. I'm going to check to see if we have any other fire situations set up on radar here. Just trying to watch things. It almost looks like we might have something in Duval County popping up. Let me see if there's any word on anything. This is so fluid here, folks. In fact, let me see what I'm talking about. It's hard to tell sometimes. Sometimes you see this stuff early and then it gets under control. I worry because that is right in the metro, though. So, it's, a little bit in some ways, if it's, right in the metro, it would be more likely to be in a more populated area where it's, something that, you have to just get out right away. And with this kind of wind, I mean, that wind out about this afternoon a little bit, that is just terrible wind. You don't normally see that in a blue sky type of scenario here in our area. So that looks like smoke to me, but it just popped up here recently, so I can't guarantee. Yeah, let me see if we have anything from Jack's Fire or anything. Bear with me. It's really hard to track some of this stuff down because it's not like we have warnings generally from the Weather Service. They can issue fire warnings, actually, but I don't think our office has ever done it. We had weather radios going off for us like 20 years ago or something for a fire in Columbia in the night, some mandatory evacuations and the like. But let me just see if we have anything. Sometimes we have ground clutter too, but kind of look like something in toward the metro there. Again, I'm just trying to see what we might have here. Let me just, you know what, I'll just pull up traffic cameras. Let's do that. I was going to pull it up anyway from maybe the smoke in Georgia and the Florida 511 system, but let's just see if we can find anything. I'm going to try to see if I can find anything on the traffic system here since this is in such a highly populated area. So let me just kind of look up here. See if there's any smoke or anything. There may not be anything. These are, there's a, false alarm rate with these sometimes. So, in Florida, the one I'm talking about, kind of see some haze though. Can't really tell in that view. It looks like the apex of that would be closer into, maybe not far from downtown, possibly. If there is something. Again, I can't guarantee you. This is iffy sometimes doing this live on the air. If it was in a more rural area, I would just kind of wait for word. But I just want to make sure we're not missing something here that we can give you guys the latest on. It looks hazy on some of these cameras, but it could be kind of the haze from the other fire. So, well, let me just go ahead. We'll keep watching that, of course. But let's get back to the one where we know we have the danger. And let's see if we can find some smoke views on I-95 in Nassau County from the fire there in Charlton County, where we have the mandatory evacuation here. So we have the mandatory evacuation in Charlton County in Georgia because of a fire there that's out of control. Just looking, some of that smoke might be aloft now. It may settle toward the ground tonight, though, and that's always a concern. Be pretty cool. So let me see what some of the information's showing here real quick. In terms of some of the different values here that I look at. Not expecting fog with these type of temperatures tonight being so cold, so at least we don't have to worry about that. But smoke settling toward the surface still could be an issue in the morning. We have to be alert about that. So a lot of these cameras are pointing more toward the ground, and I don't really see much there, which is a good thing. Obviously we don't want that to settle toward the ground. And if the views are focused that way, we're not going to toward the roads. We're not going to see much. So we'll go back to that camera up around closer to where this is. And we'll go ahead and kind of go up into where that area. Granted, another thing I need to mention, that camera, around the homeland area, the smoke is blowing away from it. So if we had a camera right close in the path, if the wind has switched directions, we'll be able to see better with this, but we're not able to. We're just going to kind of see this again. It's not, the clearest view by any means, but it's pretty close to where it is. It's just the winds in the opposing directions. We're not necessarily going to see, just piles of it like this. Gives you maybe a, you might kind of see it on the horizon maybe, but this kind of gives you on top of the screen, but this kind of gives you a false sense of security a little. So that's kind of the view there. Let me go ahead and see here what else we have. So it's crazy how dry things get after we had all that humidity yesterday and the like. Again, trying to give you guys the very latest on all this. Let me check power outages since it doesn't look like this was caused by a power outage. I know in Georgia, quite a number without power in the state. We actually have Atkinson County leading the way in South Georgia without power. All this wind, even if there's not, fire started by the down lines. We have Atkinson County, 951 customers in the dark in our area. We have Thomas County, 268, Eccles, 15, Charlton, 51 customers out where we're looking right now. Let me see if we have any fire situations set up on radar in other spots. Sometimes we'll have them and there'll be, something that's able to be contained with these kind of numbers. These are the wind numbers, by the way. It's not necessarily something easy, anything that pops up easy to contain. You see that even off the Moody radar, which shows you how vigorous that fire is with that smoke, blowing down there. Yeah, it sure looks like something in Duval forming, so that's not good if that is the case. With maybe a wildfire. I know Central Florida had an issue in Osceola County yesterday. I know, just kind of going through to see if there's anything really obvious. They had to run a little later down there today, so that might have helped for today. I don't know why we have a lightning strike showing up out there. Hopefully, that's just the fault. There should not be a lightning strike out here, so I don't know why that's showing up. Hopefully, it's just some type of misreading in the system. I don't know what that would be about. But as we go ahead and look back over here, we'll have to just get word on that. But yeah, this is our fire that we know that we have the danger from here toward the north. As we're looking at it, we're tracking there. By the way, Florida power outage numbered about 6,000 out in the state of Florida. We have almost 3,000 out. Wow, in Taylor County in Florida. Let me go ahead and see our covered map real quick so you guys know generally where these counties are. So we talked about Atkinson County in Georgia with some outage as well. And a little bit in Charlton where we had the actual fire started because of a down power line, it seems, based on reports. But Taylor County, almost 3,000 customers in the dark there. And Dixie County, about 700. This is all according to power.us, these power outage numbers. So, again, trying to give you guys the very latest on that here this afternoon into the evening, as we are pretty close to sunset here on this Sunday, the 22nd of February, 2026. So, again, trying to give you the very latest here. There's a lot going on in the meteorology world. I mean, this is not the big story in the country. The big story is something, that we had here close to us yesterday, a low pressure that was just trying to get going. Now it's just really, really rapidly strengthening, a cyclone type situation out there, which is a really nasty and notable one here. I'm going to go ahead and show it to you here on our other view because, this pattern here, we're getting all the cool air and the wind here, and then this is the low to the north and east I'm about to show. This is going to be a very powerful blizzard producer. I mean, this could be one of the worst blizzards we've seen in a long time. The models were not very in a good agreement. We were talking Thursday night, not much about this. We just kind of talked about a low maybe involved, and how it can affect our temperatures a little bit here, a little bit colder. But now, I mean, this has turned into something that really, folks had to start taking precautions on. Word started getting out yesterday about how bad this could be, and now we're talking about maybe some lightning in here, with some very heavy snow bands and winds, maybe gusting in some spots close to or even right at the coast, maybe east of Boston, maybe above and into that hurricane force gust range, above, just like tropical storm gust into the hurricane gust range. So this is a very serious blizzard here. It's going to, cripple these areas. Maybe power outages, big number of them, unfortunately. Folks aren't going to be getting around tomorrow in New York. So, as we're looking, this also impacts areas, around Philadelphia and, in Connecticut and in Boston. So a big blizzard here. But as we, look at that low, then you have down here, I'll see the winds. Let me put this back when I was showing the pressure pattern. Let me go ahead and show you our wind information here, because that's very important to the local store. And you can kind of see we have these arrows here, all these different arrows and all that wind here, coming on in. You see the switching of the winds down south, but a different direction, but, with the boundary, that was attached with all this was, the low, and that's the really, really strengthened. So again, let's go ahead and look back here, though. It's not going to show the smoke plume on this because it's, our system on this one zeroes out stuff that's not rain, but our other system doesn't, which is very helpful for these type of situations here. And you can kind of see as we're looking here, now it's hard to get exactly down where we're at, but somewhere around US 301 we have this fire, it's somewhere between US 301 and Theater 252, it looks like, based on what I'm seeing on radar at least. And again, we have those mandatory evacuations that have been ordered there in towards South Georgia. So again, very serious with that, obviously. Very serious situation there. Let me see if I can get an update from Charlton County Emergency Management. We're going to go ahead and try to see what the latest is with that. Again, a mandatory evacuation in play there in southeastern Georgia. So I'm going to pop that up here and just check and see if there's any more fired around since this is so fluid. Seeing if we get any updates on anything. Again, let me go ahead and just show this to you on the screen here. This information again, so for people just tuning in, we're going to go ahead and pull this up, live here. Active fire update, Highway 301/Humphreys Road area. An active fire believed to have been started by a down power line is impacting the area of Highway 301 and Humphreys Road. Please avoid this area completely. Evacuations have been ordered for Harold White Road, Humphreys Road, Bill Knight Road, and Willow Creek Road. Fire suppression and structure protection efforts are underway with support from Charlton County Fire Rescue, Charlton County EMS, Georgia Forestry, Camden County, Ware County, and Nassau County. Charlton County's 911 Center is actively managing emergency calls. Please call 911 only if you have a true emergency or immediate life-threatening situation. During active incidents, individual responses to social media questions may be limited. Charlton County EMA is actively supporting response operations and coordination efforts. The number one priority remains the safety of responders and community members. That's the storyline there. Let me go ahead and move away from that for the time being. And let's see, where else do we want to go with this? I want to look at the fire outlooks. Let's do that, because we have, these are important. Storm Prediction Center, they don't just keep tabs on severe weather, but they keep tabs on fire weather too. That's not something maybe many folks realize around here, because we don't have to deal with this much. This is something that folks have to deal with way out there, like in Colorado and in California more. But we have an outlook for today and tomorrow here that I want to show first off. So let me go ahead and show you this. So this is today's. I know it's a little bit small, but I think it kind of tells the story good enough. So there's some elevated fire risk out west too, but in Florida we have, getting into southeast and south central Georgia, but then, much of Florida here under this elevated fire risk today, but tomorrow it gets even worse. We don't just have, today we had the rain around, you know, we had, the bad conditions, but we at least, some of the ground was still wet. Tomorrow we're going to have drier ground too. And you see an upgrade per se from what, we generally don't have this here in Florida. This is a critical fire risk. This is the latest update here just from this afternoon. So it's changed a little bit. I don't see quite as much maybe of our, it points me at our southern county than this for tomorrow. But now it's about Orlando through Miami here, the critical fire risk, and then the elevated fire risk here, starts from about Orlando northward into South Georgia. Elevated still is unusual around here, but critical, that's something else. That's you haven't seen in some of these areas in years, many years in some cases downstate. So, that's something that's, is interesting here. I know some of those parts aren't as bad of a drought as we are, but still, again, something we're watching. Look at some of the other details here. I know, looking at some of the values here, just going through this live, stuff we don't generally look at here. I don't have stuff showing up here, but still, it doesn't mean that something couldn't be added at some point there. So, again, just something to kind of be mindful of. It looks like the smoke plume's just a tad weaker looking, which might be a sign they're getting a little bit of a, maybe, maybe instead of 0% containment, maybe you have a little bit of containment with this at least, the higher containment number, the better. But let me see what we can pull up with the Georgia fire map. Let me see what I can find with that here. I know rainfall forecast, though, on some of our modeling, DFS is trending up a little, I see, for this weekend. So we'll watch that. We need the rain. We need the rain, so we'll take it whenever we can get it. But let me go ahead. That's just one run I'm looking at here. I'm not going to show it because it's a little more aggressive than what I've seen in some cases. But let me go ahead and see here some of our fire maps. Let me see Georgia Forestry. We're going to try to pull up their map here. I'll try to set it to you guys live here on the screen. I know this is so fluid, so sometimes this stuff doesn't get updated here, as often as we would like because they're just out fighting these fires. But this is the update as of 4:30 anyway. Georgia Forestry Commission here's map. You can see it. The fire there, Charlton Highway 301 fire, 230 acres and 0% contained. There's also, another fire showing up here in this area. It's that one to the west. To the east, we have another symbol showing up. Let me see. It looks like it was showing up in here. That was from a while ago. We had another fire in here, but I guess we never got another update. They must have got a handle on that. But onto the west here, this is the one that's the real problem. 230 acres, 0% contained here. It's showing up right there around the homeland area. So yeah, not good stuff at all here on the Georgia Forestry Commission map, with that serious nature. I know we have some other active fires. Let's see what these look like. Some of these could be out of date, but no, it looks like we have one there in Colquitt County, the Colquitt Magnolia Lane Southeast fire. We don't know how big it is yet, but as of about an hour ago, hadn't been contained yet. Some of these can get contained pretty quick here. We have one showing up here in red. This is from a couple weeks ago, so some of this stuff's a little out of date, unfortunately, in here, but some of them, we have to watch for, like this one here out in Colquitt County. Looks to be an active wildfire on our map here right now. And then, of course, the big one down here in the Charlton area there, Charlton Highway 301 fire. So that's the storyline. There's 0% containment and 230 acres as the last update there. Let me go ahead and see what we can find on the Florida firefighting map here in terms of the, wildfire tracking. So let me go ahead and see what we have here. Bear with me. I know this is also fluid. I'm looking at behind the scenes first. I don't see anything popping up in Duval yet, even though we had something set up on radar. Well, it looks like we have something at Nassau, though. So let me go ahead and we have the smoke, but it looks like active fire showing up here. So there's some different indicators. Looks like we have 3 different ones. They're not. The sizes aren't big. I haven't seen any evacuation orders. Well, let's just go ahead and see this. There's 3 different ones set up in Nassau here, though. This is the Florida Forest Service map. We have 25 acres, Andrews Road there in northwest Nassau, but it's 60% contained. Don't know the causes for these. If it's, something from maybe some of the embers coming down from Georgia, I doubt it. That'd be pretty far to go, but has been windy today. But then you see right here closer to Ward to Duval line. This was one about an hour and a half ago. No size given, but 0% contained. Don't know, the details. And then another one, Williams Avenue there in Nassau County, 0% contained, but don't know the size as the last update. These are all very fluid. Let me just click on some of these to see if any of these are, that's yesterday, but it was, pretty good containment there. That's, old as well. We've had a lot of problems in Putnam, and these, aren't the 22nd, so these aren't necessarily, you see, let me check Gilchrist. Okay, that's old too, it looks like. Sometimes this, there's just not, uniform system to see how some of these fires are, exactly. It just get put in here and then kind of, they just have to worry about getting the containment to occur, at the ground level. Okay, looks like update on one in Marion was about 10 acres, 70% contained in northwest 137th place fire. So again, just trying to give you guys the very latest there. Again, trying to keep you guys up to date on this situation. Appreciate everybody tuning in, trusting me, like Thomas over on YouTube there. Again, we're approaching the top of the hour, so I'm going to recap why we're on the air. It's because we have a mandatory evacuation situation in north southeastern Georgia here. Which, that's always serious. Charlton County Emergency Management here talking about this. I know we've had these fire weather alerts in play, fire weather watches ahead. We've had red flag warning here today. We've had just a situation here. That's, another term for that is a fire weather warning here, really. I know. This is so serious here, obviously. As we're looking and as we're tracking, I see a travel ban up way in the northeast coming out here as a civil emergency message for areas toward Rhode Island from the blizzard, that we've been talking about here some too. But there's different connections between what we're getting with all this wind and this pattern to that up north with a blizzard warning. But I just was checking to make sure they didn't issue some type of fire warning or evacuation alert through the NWS information, National Weather Service information. But okay, I wanted to go ahead and recap our information from the Charlton County Emergency Management here. So I'm going to go ahead and put that back up on the screen because that's the most important thing right now. That's, we're, pretty much getting the information. We see stuff on radar, which is obviously a cause for concern. But then you get the evacuation orders, and that details it more. Okay, so about 33 minutes ago, we had an update come out. And I'm going to show that to you on the screen here. So here's the story. Here's the details. Active fire update. Highway 301/Humphreys Road area. An active fire believed to have been started by a down power line is impacting the area of Highway 301 and Humphreys Road. Please avoid this area completely. Evacuations have been ordered for Harold White Road, Humphreys Road, Bill Knight Road, and Willow Creek Road. Fire suppression and structure protection efforts are underway with support from Charlton County Fire Rescue, Charlton County Emergency, services there, EMS. We're talking about Georgia Forestry, Camden County, Ware County, and Nassau County. Charlton County 911 Center is actively managing emergency calls. Only call 911 if you have a true emergency or immediate life-threatening situation. And during active incidents, individual responses to social media questions may be limited. But the point about 911 too is they're trying not to get it tied up because, if somebody has a fire right on them, that's one thing, if they need to just be helped out. But don't just call 911 because you have smoke. They're aware of the situation here. And, if it's a whole different area, then you report it somehow. But, if it's in the area we've been talking about here, that fire, then, obviously 911's only, it's only supposed to be used in a true life-threatening situation, is my point. Of course, if you have a fire coming right at your front door and you need help evacuating it, you need to call 911 in that case, I'm sure, but, that's what you'd be doing. But still, my point is, they don't want you to just call if you're seeing smoke or something there, in the distance, and it's pretty clear it's from this fire. But again, just continuing to give you guys the latest here. Continuing to give you guys the very latest here on this scenario, on this situation. Let me go ahead and zoom back in a little bit. Again, we're looking, this is the smoke, this right here. Put my mouse on it. This is the smoke from it. It extends all the way through Nassau and in toward parts of, northeastern Duval County. And again, something's showing up in Duval County here too. I hadn't seen it on my systems here, but that's just west of Craig Municipal Airport. That sort of looks like a fire to me, popping up on the Doppler. Let me just check this radar because there's like ground clutter there. And you see the other one, it's up higher at this point anyway because it's been going longer. But it sort of looks like we have something there in North Duval as well. Let me see. Let me do some more investigating on that. Again, trying to figure this out as we look at things and as we track things here. I'll keep checking on that. But let's go back to the blizzard situation. I was thinking about doing a special update tonight anyway, but since we're already on, I don't think I'll do a special standalone update. But, between the blizzard, the fire weather, and the freeze here in our area, it's a fire weather freeze for our area. The blizzard up north, of course, they're having a freeze too, but it's not a big deal for them. And the thing is about this blizzard situation, didn't really talk about it much the other night because the thought was maybe a little bit of snow up there, but the low would not be as big of a factor and that it'd be further off. You wouldn't have that type of intensification, impact these areas as we were looking at, as we were tracking things. But as the models kept changing and shifting, now we're talking about a full-on blizzard. We're talking about gusts to close to hurricane force, but maybe some areas getting 2 feet of snow, and there'll even be some lightning in here, thunder snow. The thunder snow is not, generally the problem here. It's just this is going to be such heavy snow here, and it's going to be blowing so much. And the snow's going to be a heavy factor too. In that the texture of it. It's just going to be causing a lot more power outages than you generally have from snow. I mean, if you went to the snow, a foot of snow even in New York, over the years, it hadn't happened much lately, but over the years, it's not that uncommon, and they can handle that in general. It's not a national story, but the problem is becomes a national story now, a big national story, because it's not an ice storm, sure, and that's worse, but in terms of lingering impacts in general. But the blizzard, the wind's going to be so strong, it'll be knocking down power lines, and you have the weight of the snow, which is going to be heavier than normal, and more than normal, and then you start having a problem. It's in some of the most populated areas in the country, and schools having to be closed, and travel bans having to be instituted. People aren't allowed to be on the road here. So yeah, you start to become a bigger deal. Some of the big economic hubs here in the country being shut down tomorrow, and some folks may not have power and or internet either. So working from home, doing schooling from home may not be happening. It's not happening in New York from what I've seen in media reports. There's a full-on snow day tomorrow in New York there with this overall pattern. There's our general thunderstorm risk. This is where we could have lightning popping up within the bands of snow, all up and down in this green area here. Some lightning popping up, thunder snow here. So that's something that you see weather reporters in, through the years that, is really dramatic. But that's not, the big story. The big story is the wind and the snow. I mean, 2 feet of snow in some of these areas with, gusts to hurricane force, give or take on both of those. Some areas actually, out here, some could actually have higher than hurricane force and more than 2 feet of snow in some of these areas. But the point being, in general, to have that much come into play here, wind, heavy snow anyway, and then it's, just what a mess. I mean, heavy snow with, it blowing around in the wind, and it being so much, it's not a good combination. As we look here and track things, I mean, I'll show you I mean, you can see some of the darker grains a little bit heavier, and then it's just getting it that together. Going to keep strengthening. Peak of this isn't even until early tomorrow. And you see the low, it's like it's not a hurricane, but it is a low pressure. Here the winter pattern, a cyclone here, and it's going to have some looks on visible satellite like a hurricane in some ways, not exactly. There's different processes involved here. Different processes here involved. But let me go ahead and let me put on visible. It's probably going to be too late now, but I can back it up 4 hours to be able to see. I mean, look at that. It's like an eye of a hurricane almost here on visible satellite 4 hours ago. And you have all this wind back behind here, and it's been filtering in, causing our wildfire danger, in part. This overall pattern here is just not what you want to see. Not what you want to see, obviously, and that's why we're dealing with the mandatory evacuations there in Charlton County in Georgia here. So again, a very nasty situation there, obviously, as we're looking and as we're tracking things. Again, the mandatory evacuation there in play in toward Charlton County. So you see all that smoke coming down here. This is smoke, showing up on the Doppler echoes. The radars out here at the airport where the weather service is in that area. And then we again have something else set up in Duval. I don't know the details on that yet, but again, continuing here, you see at points when you have the yellows, in theory, it could mean a stronger fire or heavier smoke. So maybe it's weakening some, maybe. This is always hard to look at, and we're getting closer to night too, so it would start to settle and not be as high up, so it might not be as visible on radar. So we'll see. The winds will still be up. We have some wind chill factors tonight to worry about. It might be harder to get frost in some of our areas here because of that. I know, that's something we're watching, down towards Stark. We're not under a freeze warning for tonight. We are under a freeze watch, though. For tomorrow night, we have cold weather advisory for tonight, though, because of the wind chill factor. No frost advisory, though. The winds are going to be just so strong. I mean, we could have gusts tonight, getting up 20, 30 miles an hour still. So sometimes the winds die down more at night in a fire situation, not so much. And tomorrow we're barely going to get in the 50s, then in the 20s tomorrow night, and then, maybe frost as we look ahead, even maybe for Wednesday morning. Then we start to really warm up, but still going to be dry for a while, maybe until about Friday. We started to get more moisture in here Friday, and then the weekend here, it could be a little bit on the wetter side. So we'll have to watch for that. Obviously we need the rain very badly. So, we just got to take, even if it messes up your weekend plans, you got to have the rain, or we're going to have more of this, and he's fired, which, just terrible to have to talk about people having to evacuate because their homes are in danger here. And in some cases, maybe even, lives can be in danger, unfortunately, as we look and as we track things. Let me do something else here for you. This is the current wind direction. Let me take that off, though. I'm going to take off the current temperatures as well. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to put our high-res modeling on and look at the wind direction forecast here. And you'll also notice the coloration here some. Let me go ahead. I'm just kind of centering this around some because you'll be able to tell based on some of this how these colors can tell this story in terms of, the yellows, reds, pink, stronger ones. Greens are still enough to show up in here, though, which is not exactly ideal. That's still pretty strong wind. But the direction is what I want you to watch. So tonight, we're getting the quarter coming in from the north and the west behind the boundary here. And you can kind of see as I keep progressing this, we still have these colored persistent. They go off because I'm switching between hours, but they're still there. This is at about 11 p.m. tonight. And then we'll get, let's go to the sunrise period, even wind then, which you don't generally have. Obviously, that far up north, smoke might settle some. It's going to be windy tonight, but some, and if that kind of settles, of course, that causes air quality problems. But this is early tomorrow. You have greens. It's pretty strong wind, really. This is maybe 10 miles an hour sustained, give or take. Some areas even more than that. It goes higher at sunrise, so, fire threats could be a little bit sneakier in a bad way at night than normal. We generally don't have this kind of wind, so be vigilant, even during the night. In some ways, I know it's hard to, you want to sleep, but just, have multiple ways to get alerts in case you have emergency management having to notify you, or even fire officials having to come to your door during the night. It's not out of the question with winds being up this much here during the night. We'll be cold, though, which could help firefighting efforts in a way, because the firefighters maybe not quite as, tired, but It's still so dry and not a good situation here. I know when we have frost and stuff coming up, it's an unusual combination around here to have fire weather concerned and frost. But that'll be something where, maybe it's something that can help just a tad bit in that short period of time. And winds will be down some when you have frost too. That's later on. You see the wind still tomorrow coming out of that north and west. So if there's a fire to your north and west, if it's in close proximity, that's when you have problems. So that's what I'm showing this to you because of that mainly. I'm going to smoke too, in a way. This impacts that, but that it's a fire is going to blow in the direction here, that I'm showing you. So if you have a fire, like where we have the one right now in Charlton County, it's going to blow. It's going to move in theory here toward the south and east. The fire, generally, the uncontained area there, going to keep pushing. By the way, I just had a gust of 14 here. Used to start pretty late. Have a gust, only at 7 feet up there on the anemometer, that high. But you see, as we get into ward, let's get out all the way to sunrise on Tuesday. You don't see as many of the arrows, so they're not as strong of winds, luckily. The sustained wind factor drops some, and that's why you don't see as many of the arrows, but still that wind coming out of the north and west, pushing any smoke fire to the south and east in general here, as we're looking at, as we're tracking things, just trying to give you the latest here. So I'm going to go to extended range a little bit. This is Tuesday. We're going to get in the afternoon, start to see the wind shift now from west to east. So if there's active fires, smoke, then it's going to start shifting around on you on Tuesday in Georgia. Not as strong, again, not as many arrows. But again, as we keep looking here, keep tracking things, and you start to see the wind shift in Florida, coming on Tallahassee anyway, from the south to the north. And then, west to east in general in north central Florida, though it's not, completely that way as we continue to watch things, continue to track things here. I know, of course, as we look ahead, we have things like the Bradford County Fair coming on up, and we certainly don't want, smoke, fire issues. We also don't want issues there with rain, but if we have to have the rain for the fire threat to be suppressed, we just have to deal with it. Don't want severe weather, of course, too early. I don't know any detail on that coming up. Hopefully it'll just be rain. We just need some rain here. We had a little bit last night, but it wasn't near enough. Some areas got more than I did, but we only got 2 100s here east of Stark on that rain gauge here. Not enough. Let me see what they got at the sheriff's office since midnight in Stark. They might have got a little bit more than us. No, they got the same 2 100s on their rain gauge as well. They just had a gust of 15 in the last 10 minutes. So, as you see here, though, I'm going to keep looking through this. This is going to be early on that 25th. So we're talking about early Wednesday morning. We maybe have frost formation. Don't see as much wind around, but some south to north type of winds. If there's a fire, if it's off toward your south, and if it's in close proximity, that can, in theory, spread closer toward you. If it, as that's what we're kind of looking at here. Then as we look here on Wednesday, you see some of these greens again. They're still getting pretty blustery out there, unfortunately. As we're looking and as we're tracking things, you see south to north in a lot of areas, not everywhere though. Let me back that up a little. You have a little bit of southwest and northeast there toward like the, Melrose area. I just see on this map, something like that, southern Clay County and Duval County there, and kind of shifts around some. So that can be an issue too, because, right now at least we kind of know which way. It's so strong, which isn't good. Kind of know which way the wind's coming from, but that shifts, and that can, mess up containment lines of trying to contain one direction, and it shifts to try to go the other way. And then, there's a house right there, and then all of a sudden it advances quickly or something. So again, as we're tracking things, we're getting, this is into the 26th, which would be your Thursday. So as we're tracking, you see the wind coming from the south to the north in general here, and still getting pretty strong. Some of those greens showing up. Granted, let me add some of the rain forecast in here at this point. Should start to get some of that in here. Probably need to change that mode over because that's showing in winter mode, so we don't need that here. But for that, but that's your Thursday. You start to see some rain come in as we're looking, which would be good. Obviously, this is in this 18Z run, by the way. So that's new information we're seeing. It just came out a little while ago, but this is an early Friday here. As we're looking, as we're tracking, you watch the wind, you watch some rain in here, maybe. if we're optimistic here. We need it very badly. So you start to see the wind coming from north to south there, though, as we get toward the 28th. And then northeast to southwest. So you have some shifting winds here as we're looking. Yeah, this is on Saturday. And you see here some rain coming up. This is on sunrise on Saturday. Maybe rain here around northeast, north central. We'll see, though. We could use it. This is a more aggressive than what I was seeing earlier on. It would be good if this was, coming true. But then you see the wind around. And, if we don't get the rain, the wind direction, the pattern could be a little different. But you see east to west, northeast to southwest, give or take. You still see some greens on some of those arrows, which indicate a little bit stronger. There's all sorts of different spots in the area. Some of them have different directions. I'm looking at certain spots, some points. As you see early on the 1st of March there, I don't want to get much further than this because when you get over a week out, we're kind of on the edge of, the meteorology at this point anyway, but you can see some of the different directions, east to west, as we're looking there in southwest Florida, northeast to southwest, though, in north central, northeast Florida. So it kind of varies some. This is, Sunday there, the 1st. As we're kind of giving you guys a look here, as we're tracking things. So again, that's kind of the storyline. I'll take that off because I don't want to go any further than a week on something like that. With the directions of the wind, because that can definitely change between now and then here. But again, just continuing to give you guys the very latest on this. The situation. Let me see what we have. Just checking here for any updates. Let me take off the model. Put the current back on for people just tuning in. I'm going to go ahead and show the other view here with the smoke. Again, trying to keep you guys up to date. Always, terrible when people have to evacuate like this, when we have homes in danger, of course. So keeping everybody impacted, my thoughts and prayers. Let me go ahead and see. I'll check our Georgia forest map. Let me do that to see if there's any updates. You can get the links to Georgia map, Florida map on cloudweather.com near the top of the homepage, by the way, when you want to maybe look at stuff. You're concerned about something. It'll show you at least the latest numbers in their system, that are last input about containment and the like. Sometimes things are just so fluid, they don't have a chance to update things. 4:30, the last update on that fire there, the Charlton Highway 301 fire, 230 acres with no containment noted at that point in time. So just checking more. It's very fluid, obviously, what we're doing here, in terms of getting these updates. Depending on the information that we get in, may wrap it pretty soon if we don't get much more information. But only so much you can say about wildfire here in some of these situations. It does look a little bit better and redder, but we're getting closer to dark here at sunset pretty much. So, it may not be, if the winds die down even a little, it may not be going up as high, even if it's still danger toward the ground, toward the surface. I'm hoping they're getting some better handle on it, better handling on it here. But you just never know as we're looking here and as we're tracking. Let me go ahead and just keep looking here through the latest information. See if there's any update from Charlton County Emergency Management. I don't see anything new, but let's just reiterate what we were talking about here. This is the most important information. It's going to be the most important information. So let me go ahead and put this back up on the screen for everybody. This latest update was from about 53 minutes ago at this point. You can see active fire update, Highway 301/Humphreys Road area. An active fire believed to have been started by a down power line is impacting the area of Highway 301 and Humphreys Road. Please avoid this area completely. Evacuations have been ordered for Harold White Road, Humphreys Road, Bill Knight Road, Willow Creek Road, and fire suppression and structure protection efforts are underway. So obviously homes in danger. With the evacuation orders, with, having to have structural protection efforts, they're underway from Charlton County Fire Rescue there. Charlton County emergency services there, the EMS, Georgia Forestry, Camden County, Ware County, and Nassau County. So, again, that's the latest update there. Obviously, if we wrap and we need to come back on, we'll do so, immediately. Here, it's all about protecting you, your friends, and your family. At some point, so it's just hard to, talk about stuff for much longer without, more information. But there's all the different platforms we're on. I alerted you guys to this on Facebook there by sharing it on the 2 Facebook pages a little before we came on. As we're getting things together. It's not like a tornado situation where you're on standby. We are on fire situations too. I have been kind of today because of the higher winds, but it's something we have to gather a little bit more. We can't just kind of jump in and sell radar without much context, or it starts to get kind of, you're guessing too much here. That's why we have to do a little bit of research here before I come on. So it takes a few minutes, but I was able to share it out there to get that to you, as quick as I could get it into me here in the Weather Center. So again, just trying to give you guys the very latest here on these type of situations. Obviously, it's just so important, obviously, as we're looking at, as we're tracking things. So again, just trying to give you guys the very latest, obviously, here, these nasty situations. I'm just checking some different things here. I'm just trying to keep you guys up to date. I know, even though so much going on with the weather and fire weather, freeze, blizzard up north, it was a good day for Team USA there in hockey, the men's team, getting that done for the first time since 1980 with a gold medal. That's, something great to see. But this wildfire risk is something that's not great to see here, obviously, and that's why we're so concerned. We had to turn that logo red based on everything we're seeing. The threat's going to be even worse tomorrow in general, especially downstate, but even somewhat up here, had that fire weather watch here in play. Just, a lot of concern. We had to rain earlier today. Tomorrow we're not having rain earlier on. So, as we're looking as we're tracking things, see, that's a cause for concern, obviously, as we give you guys the very latest here, cause for concern. I know the winds, we've just had them up. So high today. Maybe not quite as high tomorrow, but you have your humidity values is so low. It's going to be so dry out there. It's just not a good situation here, obviously. Today, I'm just looking at stuff here. 6 p.m., maybe 29 with a gust tomorrow. At 6 p.m., according to the weather service here on Stark. They have 21 with a gust. So, yeah, a little bit lower winds. Today are just crazy high. But tomorrow, that's still bad enough. Your humidity value today, I can look at my numbers. They have 28% tomorrow at this time. They have the humidity value at 30. So, yeah, but during the afternoon it's going to be in the 20s, and the thing is, at least we had the antecedent rainfall a little. It was 2 and 100 here, but tomorrow the ground's going to be even drier. Is my point. So it's going to be cooler. With again, it's going to be worse in general. Some of that could be worse downstate too than anything. But they weren't even in the worst drought. They were on the edge of it in Charlton, and we saw what happened. It's about getting a spark, unfortunately, and obviously there are burn bans in play that you gotta follow. A cigarette, butt or something like that. Even that can just cause things, to catch on fire very rapidly. Unfortunately, if those aren't, disposed of properly, it's just something that can be very serious. And very dangerous here. So you got to follow all the orders. This is apparently because of a down power line, probably because of all the wind, presumably here today. But still, any spark can cause a big problem, and obviously they can be legal, and even obviously consequences in terms of injuries as well for a fire. But your Georgia drought index are right on the edge there of severe to extreme. So most of us are under extreme here, especially in North Florida. And they weren't even under the highest compared to everybody else, really, especially North Florida. So that just goes to say we all gotta be paying attention. We're all, having a higher level of concern, whether we even have a higher fire risk for a certain day or not. You really just got to be very careful. You got to be very vigilant here, relative to your surroundings. This is, extreme drought. Our rain last night didn't help much. Had a little bit more out west and down south of where we're at on Keystone, they had a little bit more than we did here on Stark, where we only got 2 100ths of an inch. And we're still getting these winds here at night, out of the north and west, 10 miles an hour on my gauge. Right now, the humidity is at 33%, the dew point's at 27. Again, we're not going to have the antecedent rainfalls on the ground. Any of the puddles are going to be gone tomorrow. We're not going to have any moisture. It's just going to be, it's going to be down, off the surface there. And, it's something where tomorrow that can, hurt us more, with the winds not quite as high, maybe. Humidity value is pretty similar-ish there. But tomorrow the ground's going to be drier. So, that's something really got to contend with here. And the winds will still be plenty high enough, even if they're not, gusting to 40 to 50, gusts to 30 can definitely still be a big problem here. Even gusts to 40 in a few spots can't be ruled out. But, this was the highest wind type of number we've been seeing here used to start in 9 months. I mean, looking back, my gauge is pretty low down, but the point is, it was 27, which doesn't sound like a lot, but, you go up higher, if that was a higher, this anemometer was higher up, I have it at a certain spot because the temperature rain measurements are a little bit more accurate at the spot I have it. But the wind number was 27, really like 40 if you're measuring at a height of most anemometers, like a tropical storm force gust. And we haven't had a gust like that here where we're at. I go back through the months here, and bear in mind, these numbers are going to be lower based on where it is, but last month was 22 peak, and December was 21, 20 in November, 18 October, 21 September, 18 August, 24 July, 21 June, it was 32 last May, 25 last April, 25 last March, 27 last February, 26 last January. So my point is, last, time we had a gust that was higher than this was last May in 2025. So 9 months since we've had a gust this high. That's why we're having fire danger. We're lucky we've had more fires form, to be quite honest, with these kind of winds, but it's still going to be up during the night here tonight as well. And with the official outlook, we did have some of our southern counties under a higher risk than today. That has been changed in the latest Storm Prediction Center outlook. And yes, they do the Storm Prediction Center fire outlooks, which is not something most people realize. I realized it for a good while, but I used to not realize that, because it's not something we talk about around here very much. Talking about fire threats, they issue the severe weather outlooks, but they issue for the fire danger too. We had a critical in our southern areas here for tomorrow. They did take that away, but it doesn't really matter here that much. I'll show it to you here on our source. Let me go ahead and remind you guys of what we're talking about today and then tomorrow here. Again, you have elevated. That's today, and then tomorrow's day 2 outlook has elevated up in our area, much of it east of Tallahassee, from about Charlton south and through Florida, but then Orlando south's critical all the way through Miami. It's even more dangerous down there. Let's kind of look at their statement here. This is their afternoon update, and it's probably hard to read, so let me just take that off real quick. I'll make that a little bit bigger again for everybody. Go higher than 100% on here, so we can kind of read this together for tomorrow as we're looking at X. We're tracking things in the wake of the cold front moving through south across the Florida Peninsula. We're talking about a situation where strong northerly winds and very dry surface conditions are expected across parts of central and southern Florida, continuing from overnight Sunday to Monday. Gusty north winds of 15 to 20 miles an hour amid relative humidity values below 25%. Should support widespread elevated and critical fire weather conditions, especially across southern Florida where the fuels remain dry. You saw central Florida wasn't as bad on the drought outlook as we were tracking that situation, but the northern portions of the critical area have been trimmed, so trimming it, out of our southern portions of our area. Some areas have exceeded an inch of rain there in the last 7 days, but still, still big issues, still big concerns. Fuels have likely been tempered though. Short, hour fuels could still support some elevated fire concerns though. And then dry and breezy offshore winds will continue for much of the Gulf Coast Monday. And while weaker than the preceding days, gusts to 15 to 20 miles an hour with relative humidity below 30% could allow for some locally elevated concerns even in southern Louisiana, Mississippi. So, as we're tracking things here with the very latest, I know they had the critical all the way to like Marion and Flagler earlier on, but they did trim that. But that didn't matter a lot. Still big concern here as we're looking and as we're tracking things overall. So, again, just got to really be very cognizant, very mindful here with this situation. I'm just trying to keep you guys up to date on all this here in toward the weather center. I'm just trying to let you guys know exactly what is happening here. I don't see much of smoke on the Doppler at this point in time. Again, looking at all the different tools. Just going through all the different resources we have. Again, going through the latest. Again, trying to keep you guys informed. Just looking through here because what I'm giving you guys the very latest. It's just a one-man band, of course. Okay, we just got an update. Okay, evacuation's been expanded, in fact, so not what you want to hear. Forest Lake Drive now being added. This just got posted 4 minutes ago from Charlton County Emergency Management. So let's go ahead and see, you guys. This now on the screen. Okay, 4 minutes to go. They sent this update out. Forest Lake Drive has now been added to the evacuation area in Charlton County. Residents on Forest Lake Drive are asked to evacuate immediately and follow directions from on-scene personnel. Please continue to avoid the Highway 301/Humphreys Road area completely. Further update to be provided as conditions evolve. So, Forest Lake Drive now also under an evacuation order. Forest Lake Drive has been added to the evacuation there. You need to evacuate. You're asked to evacuate immediately and follow directions from on-scene personnel there in toward Charlton County in Georgia here. Again, a mandatory evacuation now, including Forest Lake Drive in Charlton County in southeastern Georgia as well. Not what you want to see, obviously. So, Forest Lake Drive, let me just look at the map I have internally here. I just want to go ahead and check out where that is there as we're looking and as we're tracking things. So, it's in an area there. Now, I put in Georgia and it's taking me way to the north. So, let me go ahead and just zoom into that local, hyper-local area. Just trying to give you guys the latest there. Okay, I got it now. It's near a forest lake, apparently. Not too far from 252, apparently. So, just trying, hopefully they can use that. I mean, obviously, if there's homes, which there are in there, you know, it's not going to help that much, the lake, because you don't want to have the homes in danger, but maybe they can somehow use the lake to their advantage out there. As we look and as we track things, again, that's near 252, but Forest Lake Drive now added to the evacuation. It looks as if really this is more closer to the east of Homeland there, the community of Homeland, you know, in Charlton County. Just for, you know, reference, outside the city limits of Folkestone and Homeland, but more so due east of Homeland there. However you want to pronounce that there in toward Charlton County. So again, just trying to give you guys the very latest as we look and track things. So the mandatory evacuation, you know, added now to include Forest Lake Drive. Again, trying to give you the latest. So it's not just Forest Lake Drive that's under the order, though. It's also Harold White Road, Humphreys Road, Bill Knight Road, and Willow Creek Road. So evacuations, mandatory evacuation there in that area. Harold White Road, Humphreys Road, Bill Knight Road, Willow Creek Road. But then, of course, Forest Lake Drive now also in the orders. That's 5 different roads there under an evacuation order there in Charlton County. So again, just continuing to give you the latest. I mean, the fire is kind of based on my maps looking off camera where those roads are kind of in this area, give or take, and you see the plume going southeast as generally you'd expect. But it's pretty much due east of the homeland indicator there. Again, just trying to give you the latest here on this very fluid situation. It's just off at 252, really closer to that than 301, where Forest Lake Drive appears to be on the map. But Harold White Road's a little more in between at 301. Humphreys Road connects 301 out into the woods a little bit there. So again, just continuing to give you guys the very latest here on this situation. Again, it's a very fluid one, obviously. Let me go ahead and see what else we might have for you guys. Just checking all my different tools here that I have in the Weather Center. Again, the newest news right now, evacuation order added now to include Forest Lake Drive there in Charlton County. So you are asked to evacuate immediately. Charlton County Emergency Management asking you to evacuate immediately and follow directions from on-scene personnel. Again, still with you here. Letting you guys know about this wildfire concern. Just trying to keep you informed here. The camera's not necessarily facing it, in terms of the smoke is going the opposite direction, but I have a camera pretty close to it. I'll show it to you. Georgia 511, it looks like at least maybe a red light, blue lights in the distance there. Not 100% sure, but trying to give you guys an idea of the situation here in north southeast Georgia. Hazy look, it would seem, as right about sunset right now. Again, just trying to keep you guys informed here. Apparently a down power line, presumably because of all this wind, was a trigger for this brush fire. As we continue to update you guys. Again, trying to keep you guys informed here with this wildfire. And I'll continue to update you on this. We check radar down in toward Florida again. We had something in Duval earlier. I don't see it anymore, so hopefully if there's any type of fire down there, it was able to be contained better. Don't really see a signature for that now, like we still see this clear strip all the way to the Atlantic. I mean, in theory, if you're at the coast there, it's been cool, but there may be seeing some of that smoke, as it's been pushing from northwest to southeast. Those winds coming out of the northwest, pushing things off to the south and east. And, obviously, if you're around a fire, if you're due southeast of it, that could put you in, harm's way. The greatest chance of that, at least, if you're due southeast. But there's always different hyperlocal things that can go on in these fire situations that you have to be aware of course. The drier we get, the more, we get concerned about some of the historic fire years around here, like 1998. Hopefully we don't have a situation like that. Anything, anything close to that or worse than that. We just got to get rain here. Maybe we'll get a little bit more towards Saturday, Friday, based on what some of the latest model guidance from DFS was saying. But it's a little early to know for sure. Maybe about 50% chance for Friday. But yeah, we're still ways, out with that. Our rain chance for early today, around Stark only gave us the whole event, only gave us 2/100ths of an inch. Enough to see a little bit of puddling in a few spots, but it's not enough. Not near enough. Some areas are a couple feet behind in terms of that rainfall here in the hole, in the deficit here. They need that much more to overcome to not be in a drought, but you can't have it all at one time there, or you're going to have flooding concerns, obviously. So it's a tricky situation, obviously. As we're looking in 2012, we kind of had a lot of that one time with Debbie that came through after a drought situation, in that it was helping, we were starting to, we had barrel already, but then Debbie came on in there and gave us so much rain, and we had 15, 20 inches in a lot of spots. That was historic back in 2012. But you see all these wind numbers still pretty high. They're not quite as high as they were earlier. I'll kind of try to loop this around some. You saw the LSR, by the way, on this. This came out earlier on. Give you an idea where the fire was in general. Talking about the evacuations there. Harold White Road, Humphreys Road, Bill Knight Road, Willow Creek Road. So, very serious situation, obviously. As we're looking and as we're tracking things. So, again, trying to keep you guys up to date on all that. Of course, we got that new area added here recently. We got that new road added here, and that is, in fact, again, a Forest Lake Drive. So, something to be cognizant of here as we're looking, as we're tracking things. Let's go ahead and go back to the radar, though, because the broad view, because with that situation here, up north, where we have the low pressure with our winter storm, with our blizzard. We're getting these winds back here toward our area, but we just had a low pressure nearby yesterday night, helping with a little bit of rain production, but not enough. And now this has turned into, with the lowering pressures here, into a full-blown blizzard scenario that's going to be historic. Good bit different forecasting from even late in the week. Some areas could get upwards of 2 feet of snow here, between New York, Boston, give or take, in these areas, Connecticut, New Jersey. Some of these areas could get, closer to the coast, especially, and the winds could be getting upwards of hurricane force. So a lot of power outage concerns. A very big deal up there. A historic situation, a historic blizzard, headed into one of these areas, starting to get going already with these gusty winds. Just very nasty up there. And in fact, let's switch over. I'll switch it up to the New York view here on our other mode. Just bear with me a second as I look and as I track things. Just bear with me here. I'm going to try to put up the winds with the actual information up that way. See, we have the winds down here with the blue skies. We don't generally get, and they're getting the winds with snow, so it's turning into a blizzard situation up there, whiteout, and conditions can't travel really, safely at all. And in some cases, there are even travel bans in play. But you see these gusts, they're not quite as high as some more gusts here earlier on, but they're still high with all this snow. Heavy snow is blowing snow. Just can't travel. Extreme, impacts here with the storyline up there. In fact, let's see if I can pull up our winter storm severity index here, because you have some of these areas maxed out up there. We have the wildfire concern down here. That's why we're on. But let's talk about our extreme impacts here, with this low pressure to the north and east. Just an extremely dangerous situation up there as well, but for a much different reason, and that's because of the blizzard conditions. As we're looking, this is, we don't see very much. We had some of this with the ice storm, but this is over a more populated area. The ice, longer impact post-storm, but here's, something where obviously folks having a stubble snow, and it's a situation here where, obviously you gotta be really careful, because that can lead to injuries or even heart attacks and fatalities, because it's going to be just so much here. You see, though, extreme impacts here in the purple. We don't see this in populated areas like this very often as we're looking and as we're tracking things. So now we're talking about areas there. Expect substantial disruptions to daily life around Philadelphia, getting through New Jersey and New York, Long Island. You see this purple in the Rhode Island. I mean, red's already bad enough with major impacts, but Providence and Boston here, you don't generally see this much purple. And especially in these highly populated areas like this, extreme impacts. Travel is not advised. Extensive and widespread closures and disruptions to infrastructure may occur, and life-saving actions may be needed. The wind's going to be so strong, we're going to have quite a bit of power, being knocked out here. Especially, the peak of this is not until, early tomorrow. So this is a really big deal up there in the Northeast there, with the extreme impacts, with major impacts through Connecticut and just, pretty, getting further, inland, but coastal impacts are extreme. In some cases, in quite a few areas there, a really, really, really big deal up there in the Northeast. It's, that threat is really intensified compared to what we were looking at. Just Thursday night when we were on, the models. I mean, there was split in the guidance, and then things really became solidified yesterday. They were going to have big problems up there as we were looking and as we were tracking things. I mean, going to even have lightning with some of this. That generally doesn't cause problems in and of itself, but still, it's a big deal. I mean, these are on the HRRR. Some of these numbers are pretty crazy to look at. Goodness, I'm just double checking here because I don't generally show 6-hour rates like this, but never seen our map show it like this before, which I think that kind of tells a story. So I'm about to show this to you here. I've never seen this color table showing stuff quite like this, but it's kind of showing just 6 hours. These black areas here getting a foot of snow, they're already having some now. They're going to have more between 2 a.m. and 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, these areas in black here, I mean, look at that. That's a foot of snow in just 6 hours right in New York. So an 8 inches falling, give or take 6-8 inches in just 6 hours. In addition to what they're going to get after them before. So it's very heavy rates here. I'm talking about more than an inch an hour here of snow with the wind blowing in just a very nasty fashion. I mean, these winds here, these are sustained, but, yellow, that's 20 knots sustained. So, and we're talking about gusts much higher, and you see some of this out here, Long Island, and further east even higher. You have Nantucket. I mean, these winds sustained out there. I mean, we're talking about 50 knots, which, we're talking about sustained winds, well into that tropical force range and gusts into the hurricane range. So, again, that's not a good situation here at all up there in the Northeast. Historic situation up that way for sure. Even have this chance of thunderstorm activity with the blizzard scenario here. If the low is further east, if it wasn't as strong, it wouldn't be near as big of a deal. But instead, everything's coming together this wrong for a, historic blizzard. I can't say it, but the blizzard of 2026 here. The blizzard of 26 here, they're going to be talking about for decades potentially. This is going to be up there with some of the higher snowfall events they've ever had here in some of these highly populated areas. Not so much Washington, D.C., but Philadelphia, New York, Hartford, Boston. One here in some cases will be for the record books. Big deal here. A very, very big deal up there in the Northeast with this low pressure just rapidly intensifying. Rapid intensification here with this. I mean, I'll show it to you on the visible. This will be 4 hours old, but you see, look at that eye-like formation there. It's not a hurricane, but, it has a low pressure, and it's a different type of process in the winter, per se. But it's still a low pressure here as we're looking at as we're tracking things. So, again, a big deal, obviously, up there in the Northeast. They, sitting just, 6 inches of snow. For them, actually, isn't that big of a deal, it's something where, it's able to be managed. It's not as heavy as snow and not too windy. They can get that, every year or something. This is not something that happens every year. In some cases, this isn't something that happens every decade even up in these areas. So this wind combination with all this heavy snow coming together just wrong with the, track of this. And it's just not a good scenario here for these highly populated areas. It's going to, make things pretty much impossible to travel in. And in some cases, there's travel bans in play, as we're looking into Monday. And some of these areas, just so serious up there. Of course, the reason we're on the air, though, is our wildfire situation in Charlton County. Again, we're on the air for that wildfire alert as we're giving you guys the very latest on this situation here. We're trying to keep you up to date. I put the wrong thing on, but you get the idea as we're tracking things here. Just trying to keep you guys informed on this here as we give you guys the updates, obviously. That wildfire concerns very serious there in toward Charlton County with mandatory evacuations there in play. It's just a serious scenario there. I'm going to go ahead and put this back up here. We have the mandatory evacuations. The smoke doesn't look as vigorous, but we're also getting, past sunset now, so that can play a role in how it looks, even though it could be really bad still at the ground level. And the mandatory evacuation was recently expanded there as we're looking, as we're tracking, as we're giving you guys the latest. Okay, they actually have changed this again now. They edited this, it looks like. So let me go ahead and send this to you. Give me just a second here. They put a map out too. Just a second, I gotta find a way to put the map on the screen. Okay, let me get this whole post on here from Charlton County Emergency Management. This is their Facebook page. Again, things so fluid here. They updated, they edited this, it looks like, from what we were showing. But Forest Lake Drive, Forest Lake Court. So the entire Forest Lake area has now been added. So, you know, just you see where the lake is in there. Now the winds are pushing it, you know, it's northwest. So depending on exactly where it is in here, it's pushing to the southeast is what I'm saying. But I don't know exactly where, you know, there could be different hot spots and the like. But Forest Lake Drive, Forest Lake Court, all Forest Lake area here has now been added to the evacuation area. Residents on Forest Lake Drive are asked to evacuate immediately. So the whole area is asked to evacuate immediately and follow directions from on-scene personnel. Please continue to avoid the Highway 301/Humphreys Road area completely. Further updates to be provided as conditions above here. As we're looking and as we're tracking things, at Charlton County EMA, their Facebook page here, I'm scrolling up. So, you know, if you're in that area, you want to be checking that Facebook page often. I'm going to probably wrap coverage soon, and we'll come back if we need to, and or share stuff from this if we need to. But Charlton County EMA here, their Facebook page is the place to go here for the very latest on this. You know, in that area here, as we're looking, as we're tracking things, again, evacuation update, Forest Lake Drive, Forest Lake Court, all Forest Lake area has now been added to the evacuation area. Residents on Forest Lake Drive are asked to evacuate immediately, but really Forest Lake Drive, Forest Lake Court, they've all been added to the evacuation area that already had included. And I'll scroll down here and you see some different comments from people and the like asking about stuff. But we're talking about here an active fire believed to have been started by a down power line is impacting the area of Highway 301 and Humphreys Road. Please avoid this area completely. Harold White Road, Humphreys Road, Bill Knight Road, Willow Creek Road. So those areas are under this, and then areas further up, you know, on this page are talked about as well here. And that includes Forest Lake Drive, Forest Lake Court, the entire Forest Lake area. So again, that's the storyline there. You need to evacuate here as we're looking and as we're tracking things. So again, getting the latest there, Charlton County for perspective. And we're in Bradford County. We're always on top of things the best we can be, especially in these wildfire situations. It's a little tougher, but the best we can be for our 62 counties here. And we're in Bradford County. This is a map to give you perspective. You know, we're in Bradford. This is, you know, not in Baker, not in Nassau or Duval. The smoke's coming through some of those areas, but in Charlton. If you're in Camden, this is the county west of you. If you're in Ware, I mean, if you're in Waycross especially, this is to the southeast of you in general here. So just for geographic perspective here, as we're giving you guys the very latest here on this wildfire situation, where mandatory evacuations have been ordered here for Harold White Road, Humphreys Road, Bill Knight Road, Willow Creek Road, but then also recently added to include now the mandatory order for Forest Lake Drive, Forest Lake Court, the entire Forest Lake area. So again, Charlton County there, that's what we're talking in southeastern Georgia. Again, this is a serious situation here with this wildfire, and unfortunately, I suspect we're going to have many more of these in the days and, you know, potentially weeks, maybe even months to come with this out of control, uncontained wildfire scenario. So again, just continuing to give you guys the very latest here on this as we're looking at southeastern Georgia. You know, it's around Homeland there in that area. And in fact, on the Georgia 511, you can see some flashing lights in the distance. So let's pull that up and see this here in the dark. So let me go ahead and switch this one over to the source. You see what I'm talking about there, I know. Looks like quite a bit of traffic out. I'm, you know, not exactly 100% sure the bearings on this, but could be folks evacuating even. out of some of these different areas here, as we have, and we're being detoured and the like here. It's just a lot going on, obviously, in that area tonight. As we're looking and as we're tracking things, looking at the Georgia Department of Transportation camera toward Charlton County in Georgia. So again, just trying to give you guys the very latest here on this situation. 6:56 p.m. on this Sunday, this February 22nd, 2026. Again, we've had mandatory evacuations ordered. The wind's so strong today, the humidity's been so low. We have concern for tomorrow here as well, and that wildfire danger. Just, not a good set of circumstances here, as we've been alluding to, as we've been talking about here toward the Weather Center. Again, got to be very cognizant of what's going on here. It's going to be cold tonight, too. We have a freeze warning. Parts of area, Baker County, northward in general. So you got to make sure and tomorrow night, more areas for that concern. Got to make sure you're protecting your plants. Tomorrow night, even a few rural areas might have to protect their pipes here. But again, so that's something to keep in mind as we're looking. You see these flashing lights here on the screen right now. The Georgia Department of Transportation camera, the Georgia 511 camera, just over the border in the Charlton County, Georgia, about 6 miles into Georgia, it looks like. I know, close to some of these areas when we had that snow event, around Waycross, back, last month I was up there, and, of course, we're talking about that here and giving you guys the latest on that. So, again, I'm just continuing to give you guys the very latest, the best we can here on this wildfire situation. Again, looking at a wildfire alert there for the Charlton County, Georgia area. Again, mandatory evacuations in play there, and unfortunately toward Charlton County. So, again, just trying to give you guys the very latest on all that as we keep you guys up to date here. A nasty situation. Obviously trying to stay on top of it. Brush fire on State Road 23, both directions at Humphreys Road, caused all lanes to start being closed earlier this afternoon. So, nasty situation there for sure. Let's see if we have any update from Georgia. The Forestry Commission here, I should say. Let me see if there's any updates on this from them. Any containment updates? They're still 0% contained as of 4:30. Is there anything else to talk about here from this uncontained, out of control wildfire? Again, trying to keep you guys up to date here. It's all about protecting you, your friends, and your family. Trying to stay on top of this. I know those winds were just so strong earlier. They're still pretty strong now. I know we're approaching the top of the hour. I may have some new viewers joining me, rejoining me, same viewers from earlier. The headline right now is the evacuation order has been expanded in geographic areas. So we need to talk about that again for folks just tuning into the coverage here on Cloud Weather. I'll throw that back up here from Charlton County Emergency Management here. The latest information, again, the evacuation order had to be expanded here in geographic space. And in fact, there's some other updates I'm going to get to here. But let me recap the one that, is most important here first. We'll go ahead and pull this on up here and share the screen with you from the Facebook post from about 30 minutes ago. They actually updated a little bit since they, first put it out. But yeah, this post. But Forest Lake Drive, Forest Lake Court, all the Forest Lake area added to the evacuation area. Residents on Forest Lake Drive asked to evacuate immediately. That area there, you see the map they put out there in that vicinity there around 252, give or take. And we look here and we talk about, what's going on Harold White Road, Humphreys Road, Bill Knight Road, Willow Creek Road. So you got to take this very seriously. Obviously, those areas are also under the evacuation order. So again, just got to be very mindful of this here as we're looking and as we're tracking things here. Not what we want to see. Let me see. There's some other information from Charlton County Fire Rescue from about 34 minutes ago. Their Facebook page. I know. Let's see what I have from them. Let me go ahead and just kind of see the volunteer fire department talking about the situation. I know they're saying volunteer firefighters from all over Charlton County are currently working a major brush fire north of Folkestone there. Let me recenter this map just a bit since it's kind of a little bit further up here. Let me just kind of zoom into this area a little bit as we talk. But again, we're talking about a situation they're working, to try to contain this. But it's the Charlton County Fire Rescue saying that volunteer firefighters from all over Charlton County are currently working a major brush fire north of Folkestone. Mutual aid units from Callahan Volunteer Fire Department, Hilliard Volunteer Fire Department, the Hunter Volunteer Fire Department, Hoboken Volunteer Fire Department, Ware County Fire Department, Camden County Fire Rescue, Camden County EMA, Charlton County Sheriff's Office, Georgia State Patrol, Folkestone Police Department, Homeland Police Department, and multiple other agencies. They're all, involved in trying to work with, getting this under control. So please avoid the area if possible. They've been made aware that there was a post that was made requesting bottled water to be brought to the command post, but they say they greatly appreciate those of you that have donated, but no additional donations are needed at this time. Thank you for all of your support. So they were made aware that a post requested bottled water, but they greatly appreciate those of you who donated, but no additional donations are needed at this time. I'm sure they want to try to keep people, out of this area as much as they can to try to, get the situation under control here, as we're now into the nocturnal hours here past sunset. So again, let's keep watching things. I know they posted something the other day, shared it from the Weather Service in Jacksonville graphic. I haven't shown this one to you before, so we'll see this graphic. This is from National Weather Service Jackson. Let's talk about what causes wildfires here. Of course, we think this one may have been caused based on a down power line, all this wind, but there's other causes that can exist for fires in general as well. So you see here, I'm going to take our information off. I know we got quite a bit on the screen, so I'm going to take off. Let's see, what can we do here? We're going to take off our clock and our logo here so we can kind of read over this graphic here to you guys live. This very fluid situation. This graphic from NOAA/weather.gov. By the way, let me take that off too here. My thing that's in the way. So you can just see all this. But a spark in the presence of fuel and oxygen can cause a fire, which can further spread depending on various weather conditions. A spark plus fuel and oxygen equal fire. And today we had wind and drought. Not high temperature, but we had low humidity, and we had, that spark was a down power line, which is not good. But, fire can be sparked by natural causes, but most wildfires in the U.S. are caused by human activity. Now, natural causes, lightning strikes, heat from the sun, human activity, vehicles and machinery, cigarette butts, fireworks, campfires, and burning brush. Obviously, if it's a human activity that causes a fire, then that can lead to legal consequences, even maybe criminal prosecution there. So you cannot, be doing that here, especially if it's something, really, not smart, like throwing a cigarette butt out the window or something of your car. They can, try to do different things to try to figure out who caused that. And law enforcement, can use that full, force of the law to put folks, in prison, in jail for stuff like this. So, we talk about fuel, though, grass, some of this dry vegetation here, brush, trees, oxygen almost everywhere, and then you have conditions. Strong wind today has been a problem, drought, everything but the high temperatures. Not as high tomorrow, the temperature, but the wind, the drought, low humidity, a problem again. Again, this one actually may have been caused by a down power line, but that is in part because of the strong wind, and we had the dry conditions, and the strong wind spread things quickly. So that's kind of the storyline there. Again, just continuing to give you guys the very latest in all this here. In the Weather Center. Trying to keep you guys informed here, obviously, on this very dangerous situation. Again, this one may have been caused, according to Charlton County Emergency Management, maybe by a down power line. But the wind will definitely cause, that. And that could have been the cause for the down power line and then the spreading of the conditions, here, with the fire. It's not just in one little spot, it's in a much wider spot, very big based on the acreage data we were looking at there a little while ago. So, again, something to be very mindful of here in the Weather Center. We're talking about there the acreage. Let me look here again, see if there's any new update from Georgia, forest officials there. The Georgia Forestry Commission. Let me see if they have any updates on this. No, still 230 acres as of 4:30 with no containment. So, dangerous set of circumstances, obviously. Again, trying to keep you up to date here. Again, going through some of our different sources. Just trying to keep you guys up to date. Let me read over some stuff about some of the alerts here. I'm going to zoom out. This may not show quite right because there's been so many different alerts, but yeah, this just popped in a bunch of the cold weather alerts too, but there's also fire alerts here in play, and I know that red flag warning. This is for a bigger area than you can see because some of the, they kind of overlap some, but had a red flag warning until 9 p.m. for low humidity and strong northwesterly winds for counties along in south U.S. 82 and southeast Georgia and all of northern Florida, and a fire weather watch remains in effect from Monday afternoon through Monday evening for low humidity and strong northwesterly winds for counties along in south of U.S. 82 and southeast Georgia and all of northeast Florida. And, it's just going to be something here we really have to watch. I know the fire weather watch for tomorrow, we're talking about that concern here. Critical fire conditions may be forecasted to occur, and that can turn into a red flag warning. I know Tampa office been watching the stuff. Tallahassee office has been watching the latest on this situation as well. So something to be very mindful of, obviously, with these dangerous conditions. Again, just trying to keep you up to date. Charlton County Emergency Management, the last update we got there. Let me go back here. We're going to take this off, these alerts. I know it can be a little confusing. It looks like a little something. This might not be, hopefully it's not a fire down there. That could be something else in southern Charlton. But up here we have, the smoke. It doesn't show up as high because at night. And you can see other stuff on radar too, different environmental things. But we hopefully that was what we were seeing in Duval earlier too. But I know our dew point here used to start 25, but the wind's going to be up, so it's not going to get down to that number. But I know the evacuation update there. Charlton County Emergency Management talking about Forest Lake Drive, Forest Lake Court, the entire Forest Lake area added to the evacuation area. Residents on Forest Lake Drive are asked to evacuate immediately and follow directions from on-scene personnel. So, that whole area there, just a nasty situation. Forest Lake Drive, Forest Lake Court, the entire Forest Lake area. Gotta evacuate there, and please continue to avoid the Highway 301/Humphreys Road area completely. And this is in addition, the evacuation order that was already in play there for Harold White Road, Humphreys Road, Bill Knight Road, and Willow Creek Road. So Harold White Road, Humphreys Road, Bill Knight Road, Willow Creek Road, and then also Forest Lake Drive, Forest Lake Court, the entire Forest Lake area added to the evacuation area. So 4 of those plus now Forest Lake Drive, Forest Lake Court, that entire Forest Lake area. All urged to evacuate there. So this is still fluid. If we need to cut back in, we will. If we need to share more things on Facebook, we will do that. That's, over there on Facebook. Casey Cloudx, Facebook Cloud Weather. I'll throw those up there on the screen. It's something where a lot of this stuff, here, some of these different offices, they don't use Twitter, so they just be sharing some of this over on Facebook there. Casey Cloudx and Cloud Weather. But if it's something really urgent, we'll cut back in, obviously, and may have to do that in the days to come. It could be hours to come, minutes to come, could be days to come, or next 4 more days, like Tuesday, early Wednesday. But we're watching things, we're tracking things here with this wildfire situation, obviously. We're also watching that blizzard up north, but got a gust here around, let's see the timing on this, 6:20 p.m. or so. We got a storm report. So let me see this. Our other source. This is out west of Adasta. Got tropical storm force, 41 miles an hour. So those winds have been very nasty, obviously. But then to the north, you have your blizzard here, your historic blizzard. That's a very big national story. That is the low pressure, the cyclone deepening here. And that's going to be something that, cripples some of these areas up here. It's going to make travel impossible. Yeah, it's going to, require those snow plows out and about. But obviously, some folks have to be very careful because that can lead to, a lot of exertion, and overdoing it can lead to a heart attack even. So you got to be very careful here. You want to try to do it in increments if you can. Some of it's going to, obviously, a lot of it's going now even, but a lot more overnight. It's not going to be really easy to keep up with. So it's a tricky situation. You got to be very careful. I mean, obviously, it's going to be one of those days where people, you're not going to be able to get out. Travel bans in play here with this very nasty blizzard scenario. This blue circle area talks about the danger in play there. It's a scenario where heavy snow, 1 inch plus hour rates remain possible in spots. That surface flow is intensifying. I know it's going to get even deeper, even stronger, more vigorous here as we look ahead in the timeline. And it's going to make things even more dangerous here further to the north. Washington, D.C. not as bad, even though they're getting some now. Then areas to the north, Philly, New York, Hartford, Boston, Providence, Rhode Island. This could be a historic storm for many of those spots as we're looking and as we're tracking things here with all that snow, that blizzard coming on into the picture here. A historic scenario. Not a good one at all. 6-hour snow. I'll be showing that in a second. There's your wind. I mean, look how strong that is right at the coast and off the coast there. Some gust over, that threshold to be in the hurricane force range. But we're talking about snow, 6 hour. I mean, it's black. You hardly ever see this for 6 hours. So in the total from, 2 a.m. to 8 a.m., some of these areas here could be over a foot of snow. In that period there, you see some of these spots, New Haven there, Bridgeport, Connecticut. And then that green underneath the thunderstorm risk too. But yeah, it's going to be vigorous here. Over 1 inch per hour snowfall rates with very gusty winds, knocking out power. This is going to be the texture of the snow is going to be a heavier snow too. So this really came into play. That forecast models, really came into a consensus here on maybe a shorter timeline than they generally do. Normally, you have a little bit more of a lead time for a forecast like this. Some models were showing it, some weren't showing this though, and now they're all really showing a very vigorous setup there. And we're already starting to see some of that, but it's going to get worse and worse. The rates are going to get, even higher here per hour, and we're going to have higher winds in play as we look ahead and toward that timeline. So, not a good situation here at all. As I'm going to take that off again. Let me do something here real quick. We're going to go and so yeah, this is going to be the 6-hour period from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. You see it's 4 inches maybe in that timeline. But then we take this out and you see it's 6-hour intervals. So it's not just adding things all together. This is, as I look here, is 6 hours, not the depth of it. So it's just the rates are getting higher and higher to get to these numbers in the 6-hour intervals. So that again, and I switched the run of this a little too. That latest run, it looks like so it's just a tad bit less than a 6-hour interval. I can't see it. I've been talking too long. We're gonna wrap it up soon, but again, trying to keep you safe. It's a one-man band here. As we're giving you guys the very latest, I know you can look at some of the different things, the different weather service accounts there on social media with the latest. There are websites there from weather.gov, the local ones there. We have interactive radar available. And on clutter.com can look at some different things, the data there and the like. But again, a very nasty situation up here in toward the north and the east here with that winter storm. You see some lightning there in the center as well with this historic blizzard setup here as we're looking, as we're tracking things. Again, trying to give you guys the very latest on all of that. Again, just trying to keep you safe here. Just, I know you can go to the interactive radar there, look at precip type, and try to get an idea on some of this, though. Some of that'll be model guidance too, and depending on how you're looking at it. Something to very much be mindful of as we give you guys the very latest. Keeping you guys safe and informed here. I don't know, just trying to keep you up to date. Let's get back down to the south. We have all that wind still. And that wildfire concern, Charlton County. Checking for any more updates. Don't see any new ones at this moment. But the last update was evacuation for Forest Lake Drive, Forest Lake Court, the entire Forest Lake area. In addition to the evacuation that was ordered earlier on, talking about Harold White Road, Humphreys Road, Bill Knight Road, and Willow Creek Road. So, nasty set of circumstances there, obviously, in towards southeastern Georgia. So, a nasty situation up that way. Let me go ahead and zoom back out a little bit. You see how vigorous it looked earlier on. Some of this now, as we get later on, it makes it harder to see things, but nasty set of circumstances up there. So definitely been watching things with the different indicators and the like here as I back things up from a little bit earlier on. But as we get toward night, sometimes it's harder to see stuff even if it's pretty vigorous. So we'll keep tracking things. If we need to cut back in, we will. But keep following along for the very latest here in the Weather Center. Again, if necessary, I'll be sharing some stuff there over on Facebook. But might have to pop back in on all the different platforms at different points here as well. So got more fire danger for tomorrow here. That humidity a problem being so low. And those temperatures are not going to be too warm at all. They're going to be cool, but we're going to have a lot of wind again. So be very vigilant, be safe here, and stay informed here with these wildfire scenarios. For now, I'm meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks so much for trusting me here. That'll wrap it up for now. Again, make sure you follow those evacuation orders, and we'll pop back in if necessary. Make sure, on these hyperlocal levels, we have those methods to get those local alerts as well, because it's a situation sometimes things come out so rapidly here. It takes a little bit to get on the air, obviously, in these fluid situations. And sometimes folks, are notified even more so, by like phone calls. They can be notified by even knocks at the door from fire officials. So be just paying attention, obviously, in these type of situations and staying vigilant. But for now, have a great night, and please stay safe here with this wildfire concern, this wildfire scenario.